it's Tony Tattoo coming at you from the wonderful Kildares Pub here in the deep southwest of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and this is Wide Open YYC. Today I want to talk about why we need the carbon tax and what it's all about. Originally, the carbon tax was basically supposed to be foisted on large Big Brother organizations that were emitting pollution into the air, and it would be kind of a punishment for them to pay into a system, and then it would be kind of rebated back to all the Canadians. Looks good on paper, but the tax was supposed to be taken off the industrial ogres and redistributed to the lowly serfdom, the Canadian public. So steal from the rich and give to the poor if you wish. Now that, and then I guess through all of that and through all that payment and all that money, that unicorns and pixies would show up everywhere and fix the environment at the same time. I mean, who can argue with that? Little fact findings show that there's actually no way to confirm the money a Canadian household is actually shelled out in this equivalent that will be getting back by the rebate in their taxes. Here's the mind-boggling part. According to Anthony Fury, a journalist with the Toronto Sun, at this point there's zero accounting. There's no way to know how much money has been put into this carbon tax fund and how it comes out of the household. So basically they can't tell you. And we, back a few shows ago, we discussed this. We went, where is the money going? What's it going to? How does the system work? When do we get rebates? And what's the money doing to lessen the emissions of carbon in the air? Nobody can answer that because the accounting hasn't been done. So you can't follow the money. You can't even go after the cash because it's not written down anywhere. They don't know that actually, supposedly low-income families have the most to benefit as they will receive higher transfers than high-income households. However, you can't prove this on an individual level. You know why? Because you can't. It's not written down anywhere. There's no accounting done. So it cannot be proved that the costs should be shouldered by the big bad corporations. They look at all the cash the carbon tax will rake into the federal coffers, and believe it or not, the calculations are that the households that are paying to this will pay 3/4 of the carbon tax, not the big brother corporations. And where's that money coming from? Well, it's coming from you, and it's coming from me. Does that make any sense to anybody? I don't think so. Meanwhile, in entertainment news, Madonna has a headache today. And no, in reality, I'd like to do a big shout out to Chewbacca. Yes, yesterday, Chewbacca passed away at the ripe old age of 74. So I would just like to give a shout out to Chewbacca. Hey, we got a great show coming up for you. Today we're going to discuss all kinds of things and hopefully brighten your day and some thought-provoking stuff also. Remember to tell your friends to subscribe us on YouTube channel, and join us on Facebook, Twitter, and give us your thoughts.
Cavalry! 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 Hey, after one game, we are 1-0. How do you feel?
I feel fantastic. It was awesome.
What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. It was great. We had such a good time.
Your seats are right behind the south section goal, right on the front lines.
Absolutely.
Row 1.
Yeah.
I'm back up in the Channers section, row 6, so I can get to stand and everything. It was a bit nippy out today with the snow coming down, but...
You were with the crazy people. Where you belong, bud.
You try to fit in where you can. Maybe they need to adjust the parking situation a little bit. I think we had about 4 attendants trying to park 6,000 different vehicles. I don't think they were actually prepared for how popular this was going to be.
I don't think so either. Because every time we kept driving past an entrance that we couldn't get through. But hopefully they'll learn.
Better parking and more porta-johns. I had to pee on the side of a building when we were leaving. I was walking, and every step I could feel it, and it was just like,
And what about that second goal? Fantastic!
I got a great video of it. Danny Overdose 9 on the Instagram, and I'm sure we'll get it linked up to our Wide Open YYC Instagram, where I'll be not only posting little clips from every Calgary FC game, but also be posting some rants there from now on, my little quips and quotes, and you can find me there on our Instagram page at Wide Open YYC. You're gonna love it. I'm gonna be a lot more engaged and involved, and you can get your midweek fix of Angry Dan.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
You were so cool when we were driving in, and you had no idea. You opened the window of the car, the players were coming out, Tommy, the manager, was right behind them, and you were shouting, "Come on guys, let's go!" And you didn't even realize that Tommy wheeled and was like, "Yes!" Right back at you. Right back at you. It was awesome. So cool.
Well, that's what it's all about. I look out in the pub. We got a full house here tonight. I can't wait to mix and mingle with each and every one of you out there tonight. Hopefully we can get some people in here and we can talk a little bit more about it and the experience. I loved it.
Yeah, I was, from the minute I woke up this morning, I was buzzing.
It's
absolutely
football
buzzing.
day.
Yeah.
We're going to be recapping and talking about every single match. We won 2-1 today. We were all over them. We had some late penalties, a little bit of a scrum, them good Canadian boys saying,
that was great.
We'll drop the gloves, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. I loved listening to all the people around me as well. It reminded me of home. It reminded me of all the chit-chat when I was at home games with Reading and Southampton. It was so great. There was a mix of British, Canadian, lots of different people out there getting their fix for soccer.
We were giving it to the opposing team's goalkeeper.
Oh yeah!
He had a man bun, and we were chanting the man bun.
And whenever he took a goal kick, especially in the second half, it was, your shit!
It's all in good fun.
That reminded me of home.
You had a great game, Ingman. We were peppering you with shots. Hopefully you get better for York's sake as the season goes on, but all the love to York for coming out to Calgary to play us today. Better luck to you in the future.
Yes.
It wasn't your day-to-day. You had 90 minutes of hell. And
you did.
Yeah, 90
They
minutes.
got beat by the better team.
Yeah. Because we're better and we know it.
Yeah, and we love snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully we won't have snow on Wednesday, but if we do, we'll still be there. Congratulations, Calgary FC, on a great opening weekend.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to us for having a great opening Sport Talk weekend. And now this is our second week, you and me.
Yay!
And we're going to see you guys next week. We play on Wednesday.
Yes, we do, against,
Doesn't matter, we're going to win.
Yeah, we're going to win.
Yeah.
But that team needs an anthem. And we have 2 songwriters. Actually, I think we have 3 songwriters.
Well, hey.
Dan, Dave, Tony.
Let's get a little collaboration going.
They need an anthem.
Maybe we'll put up some feelers out there. You guys tell us what you think, and we'll catch you guys next week. This has been the Footy Talk.
Footy Talk.
Dan and Kaz.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Awesome.
Hey, this is Tony Tattoo coming at you in the wonderful Kildares Pub in Silverado in the deep southwest of Calgary, Alberta. And this is Polita Talk. And I'm here with Lee, and I'm also here with Dan, as you well know.
Glad to be here.
All right, man. So we're going to let Lee lead this discussion today.
Oh, really? Great.
Yes. Yeah, you're on the hot seat. Yeah.
All right. Well, today we'll talk about a couple of things. I think we'll stay around Alberta, talk about some things that are happening both inside the country, and then how Justin Trudeau is screwing some of that up, and then maybe how he's screwing up the rest of the world too. How does that sound for some items to talk about?
Oh boy, I'm ready to go.
All right. Well, let's start with topic number 1. We saw Justin Trudeau take his victory lap this week because the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal held that the the carbon tax that the federal government has been touting as being constitutionally valid. The Saskatchewan Court of Appeal did approve that, and so Justin Trudeau is using that as leverage to say to Jason Kenney and all the other conservative provinces, you guys got to get with the times. We got to measure our green energy consumption in a way that respects our international obligations.
But there's a point to be made there.
Sure.
Because there was two out of 3 judges that supported Saskatchewan's claim. So Justin Trudeau didn't actually run away with a full victory. It's like, as our leader in Saskatchewan said, it's basically this is kind of like the first game in their series, so they didn't knock it out of the park.
Right. So certainly there's going to be some places where the provinces are going to have to be involved, but what it does do is it does say that the federal government, largely speaking, is meant to be the entity with jurisdiction to be able to regulate on a carbon pricing regime how that should work. Mm-hmm. I still don't think that has solved the problem, certainly not the debate on a local level between Albertans. Kenny is still going to say, okay, we still have to get our product to market. So, yeah. You dummy, what are you going to do about it? You can't just regulate and choke off all of the supplies.
No, not at all. What are your thoughts?
At the end of the day, I'm okay with a carbon tax if we were allowed some alternatives. I've said it before and I'll say it again. When I signed up to buy my mortgage and buy my house and I signed up with ENMAX, I was charged to heat my home and I'm being taxed on that, and that's a basic human right to be able to heat your home. So the fact I'm being charged on a basic human right, there's no tax on bread because it's a food staple. It's illegal to tax on that. Loblaws was knocked down a peg because they were found out to be fixing the price of bread, and that's a human staple. It's a human right to have food, clothing, and shelter. We live in Canada. I'm allowed to heat my home and not be taxed on that. If I was given a choice to supply that heat in my home with wind power or solar power, then I'd be okay with the carbon tax.
So Dan, how do you feel though? Trudeau's response to that is your family is no worse behind, because in fact they're going to write you a check at the end of the year that's going to more than make up the your heat. What they're actually trying to do is, you're a small fish in the pond. They want to take the Loblaws and everyone else and try to reduce the carbon footprint on a bigger scale, but to be able to do it, we have to have the individual households also be accountable for how much carbon they're using.
It's not accountable. It's not being regulated properly. I have a great aunt in a senior care facility who gets a carbon rebate from the federal government, and she doesn't believe she creates a carbon footprint, but she lives in a home, in a facility that is heated, that uses natural gas, and she says, well, I don't heat a home, so of course I get a rebate. But she reaps the benefits of being in a heated facility, eating food that is cooked off of natural gas. So it's not regulated properly. It's not, you have 5 children in a large home, this is your rate. You have 2 people, this in an apartment, this is your rate. It's person to person, and it's not set up properly.
Well, one of the things that I find is that in my research, and also did in my monologue today, was the fact that there is no way to tell how much has been brought into the coffers because there's been no accounting done on the carbon tax that has been collected so far. None. Zero accounting. So they don't know on an individual basis of what your rebate's going to be.
Are you suggesting that the federal and provincial governments aren't the best at keeping strict good numbers?
Oh, good one. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Don't. What about? Okay, so
suggesting or accountability. I mean, these are our paid elected officials, and how are we holding them accountable?
Let's take Dan's example and go to where we were going to go. What about Loblaws? What about, to me, the hypocritism that you're identifying, and in the meantime, were trying to expose the larger footprints like Loblaws, and they give a $12 million, it feels like you're beating a little bit of a dead horse, but sometimes these stories need to be kept alive a little bit.
Right.
Too often, you see these Loblaws, if I'm correct, it's certainly in Ontario, I think it's a Quebec company as well, isn't it? It just seems like this government wants to fall all over itself to make sure that the Quebec and Ontario voters are going to be happy, but what about the rest of Canada?
Absolutely, and
There was a prime minister in the 70s, I can't remember his name, who bankrupted the West to feed the East. Oh God, what was his name?
ooh, I think I know.
Started with a P, and his last name started with a T. I can't remember. I can't remember. It's unfortunate that children these days don't learn their history, because if they had actually looked at Canadian history, they'd know that anytime a Trudeau is in charge of Canada, you end up with the highest rate of unemployment nationwide, and you end up with the lowest GDP nationwide. History is repeating itself. We are in the exact same rut we were in the late 70s and the early 80s from the exact same family. The exact same family whose entire family fortune was manufactured off of the selling of multiple gas stations in the province of Quebec.
Exactly.
The Trudeau family's money all comes from oil and gas, despite they look at us as dirty oil and gas people. It actually hurts, and I'm struggling to find the words to describe the level of hypocrisy of a prime minister who the only reason he's a prime minister is because of his family fortune, which is built on oil and gas, but he wants to take that away from decent, honest, hardworking people in the prairies.
I would say follow the money if you could, but nobody accounts for anything, so it's like, how could you?
Right. Well, let's stay on this topic, but let's broaden out just a little bit. Before we go into Jason Kenney this week, he's been quite loud on some warning shots over BC's bow, saying, "Look, get on board. We got to talk, or what are we going to do?" Before we get into that, I want to drill down on what you just talked about. When you purchase this family home, let's bring all of these politics and make it our family discussion. I will say this, I've been very frustrated as a consumer since I was about 10 or 15 years old, watching my parents, be exceptionally environmentally unaware. In the 70s and the 80s, we didn't know what recycling was. And I felt horrible in real time. I felt when I get older, I want to do more. So the initiative that Trudeau is taking and the debate that we're having right now, I think is a great one. I think that each of us needs to be way more responsible. Our planet is on its last legs, if I were to, be over dramatic. It's certainly not able to keep sustaining this level, and where our people are like parasites that are doubling and tripling every 10 and 15 years and consuming more carbon per unit. There's just no way that math works. So then if this isn't going to work, and you say that this is the wrong approach, like what is the right approach? Because just simply turning on the tap so that we can send all this stuff to BC and then it can go over to China, get processed and come back so we can consume more Walmart shit, that can't be the answer.
Absolutely.
So then if you were Prime Minister, what would you undo that Trudeau's done, and how would you implement a meaningful international conversation about it?
Just off the top of my head, I will admit unprepared for that question. Great question. But I will say this. Give me some alternatives. There are wind farms down in Lethbridge. If I was given an alternative, you have to pay X amount of dollars for energy to heat your home using wind or solar power. But that might not always be available to you. The wind might not always be blowing, the sun might not always be shining, but it costs X amount of dollars. If you always want your power on, you're going to use carbon-based power, but that is X plus. So yes, I will choose X plus to always have my laptop on and my heat on, and I will pay extra for that.
Right.
But if you choose not to have that and take the risk of the wind not blowing and the sun not shining, then you don't have to pay as much. But be aware, minus 40 in the middle of a Calgary winter, you might not have heat for a day.
Those are all fair comments. We need fossil fuel energy because the other energies, wind and solar, those aren't. They are only available for immediate consumption. You don't store that stuff. So
Yeah,
the technology's not there yet.
between the two of them, only subscribe 5% to the power grid.
Right.
Together.
The only reason I wanted to bring that up is because it seems to me nationally and internationally, it might be one thing to say, well, you're from Alberta, you must just be all for pipelines and consumption. It's not. We're very responsible here. There has to be some kind of transition between our oil and gas economy and moving into some kind of sustainable green energy future. But in the meantime, as we've all agreed, I mean, Trudeau's dad cashed in on the first go-around in oil and gas in the 70s coming out of Alberta. And so right now we have this amazing opportunity. And so how do we take advantage of it? So let's comment on that, and then let's get into BC.
I'll comment on this, is the fact that we're so far the most efficient power source is nuclear energy. And everybody can agree on that, and it's only because it's been regulated to death because of the fact that the Russians stole a bunch of plans off the U.S. to build a nuclear facility in Chernobyl, used inferior concrete for their silos, and it gave away, of course, as it usually does. And now everyone's just running away screaming from nuclear energy, and it's absolutely asinine that we still have that regulatory body and not building nuclear refineries or nuclear energy sources. And France also goes on to actually reuse their nuclear waste, where the states regulate to the point where they stick it in a mountain somewhere in Yucca, or Arizona, they reuse it. It's like, why are we not subscribing, or why are we not jumping on that bandwagon?
To my knowledge, the largest uranium deposit on the planet Earth is in northern Saskatchewan.
Yeah, good point.
But there's no nuclear power facilities because of 3 Mile Island, and like you said, Chernobyl. But
3 Mile Island, by the way, put up as much radiation as your cell phone does.
Mistakes and accidents are going to happen in any single energy consumption. The wind turbines down in the Crow's Nest Pass kill more birds than any oil and gas tailings pond is ever going to do. There's always going to be a victim, no matter how much you pretend or think there isn't.
Right.
So we need to find the least invasive, and that happens to be nuclear energy, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So let's hold on to nuclear energy. I think it's a totally cool one. I have a house down in Florida, and nuclear energy, when you drive down through there, you see it all over the place. It's very commonplace, and I think it's an potentially excellent source.
Yeah.
Let's come back home and talk about carbons, and talk about let's get in particular the BC government. When we had Jason Kenney now all of a sudden talk about we're going to shut off the pipeline to BC, given BC's mandate within 20 years or so, they want to be totally off of any kind of carbon product anyway. Is this a real threat? Are we going to find a solution to it? If so, how?
The problem
I think Aerosmith wrote a great song about that called Dream On.
The problem with British Columbia right now is that there was an election held, and the NDP and the Liberal government tied, and there were 3 seats that were given to the Green Party. So if you're the NDP, you're the Liberals, and I'm the Green Party, you want to win, you come to me and say, what do I want? Because I got the 3 controlling votes. The Green Party, who has 3 seats in the entire province of British Columbia, is controlling the entire province because they are the swing vote. And that is the problem with British Columbia right now, is that they have 3 people running an entire province, and it's the Green Party. We'll say no pipelines because we know you don't like pipelines, and then you'll vote with us on everything. And that's the problem with a multi-party system, which is a topic for a completely different day.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with BC right now, is that there's 3 people running an entire province.
That's complete. Canada.
Okay, do you want to add to this, or do you want to shift gears?
I actually just we promised last week we go on we talk about Rabel for about 2 seconds. The ex Attorney General, Justice Minister. I do believe firmly that those should be separated responsibilities. There should never be Attorney General and Justice Minister that should be part of a political party. They should be separate entities. And I'll tell you what, she's been a champion. And now this story is going away, and I don't want to see this story get buried under hyperbole that's coming up now these days. She was brave. She stood up. She's Indigenous. She's a little woman. She's strong, and I don't think that and I'm a big fan. She's my champion as far as I'm concerned in this role that she had, and single-handedly, I think she's bringing down a complete corrupt prime minister that we have in office right now, and God bless her. And I'll tell you what, voting the opposite direction, who knows whether that's good or bad or whatever, but right now, what we have right now is not acceptable to me.
So do we want to drill down and talk about her and Jane Philpott and their being kicked out and their
Just a little
vis-a-vis the Liberal, or
Quite a
should we
little
go
bit.
into the SNC-Lavalin scandal and talk about how Trudeau's managing? Let's touch on both of those.
Yeah,
things.
I think it's all one and the same thing.
Sure.
Kent Hare was kicked out of the Liberal government because he was accused of sexual assault in an elevator, and our Prime Minister said, even if you're accused, there's absolutely no excuse. That's how this government runs, that's how this government operates. And then a little bit after that, there was a woman who said, well, 20 years ago you sexually assaulted me, and I believe it was Nelson, BC, and he said, well, that's not how I remember it. So the hypocrisy runs all the way from carbon to energy, to sexual assault. It doesn't matter what it is. A spoiled little rich kid will always be a spoiled little rich kid.
Yep.
Sorry, that's all I have to say.
And so, taking that point, the arrogance by which he's just turning the channels is something that infuriates me. Right now we were talking and reviewing some of the polls that have come out. The Liberals, just by making the SNC and everything go away, they are now starting to rise up in the polls again. And part of it, I mean, let's drill down on another time, but Andrew Scheer is not the warm, fuzzy person that a lot of Canadians want to embrace as being our next Prime Minister. I'm going to say this. From a Western Canada perspective, which I'm somewhat familiar with, you know, as much as the Conservatives are going to rule the day just because that's the province that we're in, like, I still don't know that Andrew Scheer is going to be a big champion where people are going to come out necessarily to cheer for him. I think it's going to be there. He's going to change our economic landscape, and we're cheering for that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's like, again, we basically always go to the point that governments we don't vote governments in, we vote them out.
Right.
And that
Similar to the Alberta provincial election. It wasn't necessarily a vote for the PCs or UCPs. It was a vote against the NDP.
Right.
Which is what happened in 2015. It wasn't necessarily a vote for the NDP. It was a vote against a split Wild Rose and PC.
Right.
Yeah.
So against this backdrop now, we're backing up to Jody Wilson and Jane Philpott. What would both of you guys have them do? Like what certainly going back to the Liberals, in my mind, that would be a non-starter. If the Liberals came to me and I were either of them hands and knees, I'd say, are you kidding me? That's just not on. I don't know that their brand ties with the Conservatives. Then picking up on what you were saying, we're back to the Greens and the NDP. Do they have a meaningful voice? Like, or are they better off as independents? What would you say? should Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, Dr. Philpott, ought they consider joining and pooling their powers, or do we like their voice independent, unconstrained, without the political party telling them what to say?
I would love to see them, in direct answer to the question is to go moderate conservative. Not be the yahoos on the one, the extreme side of conservatism, but be the moderate voice, and because basically their party kicked them out.
Right.
And what I would be doing if I got kicked out of something unjustly, and possibly, most likely, illegally, that I would have a little bit of an axe to grind, and I would join the gang that will bring that party down.
Sorry, Dan,
I don't like the idea of political parties necessarily to begin with. Your hired officials, basically for the area you're representing, and it should all be election based off of your credentials. I would love to see an election, especially with the people we have now, the women you mentioned, run blind with no party affiliation, to see how people actually think. We all want to vote Liberal because we feel it's the right thing to do, but deep down we all know that the other way is the way to go. But you have this moral obligation, you have this fiscal responsibility to do this based on what color of tie people wear. And I would love to see both of them come out and write a book or do a movie of the week.
So
unopposed, unaffiliated,
Yeah.
and let people make up their own minds, not based on who they represent.
let me drill down on that one step. Here's my contention. I would like to see Dr. Philpott and Jody Wilson-Raybould stay independent for the reason that you just mentioned. By cloaking them in red or blue, they now have to toe the party line.
Yeah.
They both got kicked out because they did not toe the party line. It's so obvious to me that what we are seeing right now is an evolution on political discourse right now. Because it's into the 2000s, 2010, we now have instant access to this kind of information on an immediate level. I think this stuff always happened, and I think it was always cloaked in red or blue. There were so many things that backroom deals that happened without the sunshine of the media on it.
This way.
And so now this is becoming political and obvious. So is this going to change how politics is done? Like, what from now on, if you don't want to toe that party line, are you going to leave? And is that going to be good or bad? Like, you know what I mean? I think it's good. I think it's fantastic whenever a party lets their people vote independently, but they rarely do that because they want to maintain this perception that they're all united.
Okay, but so let's if you want to drill that far, let me drill a little bit deeper.
Okay.
How about who runs the parties? Who owns the parties?
100%.
So who could own an independent party that would be powerful enough with these ladies that we're talking about to be able to get a foothold, or to be even considered in the play.
Who owns SNC Leveling?
Well, we talked about that.
It's
the Quebec Pension Fund, for one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're one of the biggest contributors.
So this has always
shareholders.
happened. It's just that now we are seeing that it's being hit in the media, and there's sunlight hitting it. So how do we keep this going? And how do we stop stories from being quiet?
We show up next week and have another discussion.
Let's do that.
All right, this has been Polititalk. Dan, Lee,
Thanks very much.
Tony Tattoo. Peace out. Hey, this has been Tony Tattoo, and this is Wide Open YYC. So as I mentioned last week, we've had 35 subscribers to the channel. This week we have 48 subscribers. Good job, people. Come on, let's keep bringing it up. Keep telling people. And let me tell you something. This show is for you people, not just for us up here that are on-air talent and also all our production people. This is for you. This is for a forum that you can come and bring forward any kind of discussion, any kind of thoughts, any kind of entertainment news, anything that's on your mind, because this is what this is all about. So please tell your friends to subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, and we are going to be on Facebook fairly shortly, so you guys can get in touch with us or discuss things with us through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please tell us your thoughts. And just remember, be nice to everybody. And keep between the ditches and Randy Crow.